Chargers fans roll up their sleeves to fill a critical need as the holiday season gets underway.
NIMBY, as you well know, stands for Not in My Backyard. It seems like we have a new term also. It's called banana, build absolutely nothing anywhere near.
San Diego's housing crisis is bringing together some unlikely allies. And a species on the brink of extinction. We'll tell you about the latest effort to save the vaquita. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. As most of the country has moved on from the election 2 weeks ago, California is still counting ballots. That's because voter laws in the state are more inclusive than others. If voters aren't sure if they're registered, they can cast a provisional ballot. Sorting out whether that ballot should be counted takes some detective work and time by voting officials. Mail-in ballots are included in the final tally even if they show up 3 days after election.
It allows more people's ballots to count, which that's the whole goal of an election, is to get the voters to turn out and to count their ballots.
According to numbers updated today, there are nearly 2 million ballots that still need to be processed. As schools close and people leave town for the holidays, the San Diego Blood Bank battles a drop in supplies. Today, Charger fans stepped up to help. It was the 38th annual Chargers Blood Drive in Mission Valley.
How are you? Hi, we got you. There you go.
Nice, just sitting down and relaxing, man. This is cool.
Days before the holiday bearing the name, people are here to give.
It changes people's lives, and it's just important for the community to have that resource when the time comes and someone needs it.
They're blood donors and Chargers fans.
The one I got today was Joey Bosa.
Tyree, Tyree.
Some donors have personal motivations.
My father-in-law died this Sunday, so he used a lot of blood when he was sick for a while, so it was just another reason.
Jackson Gaskin's grandparents met 60 years ago at a drive like this. His grandfather donated blood to his grandmother.
If it wasn't for him and his generosity and my grandmother kind of convincing him to keep doing it, I wouldn't be here today, and my family is very thankful for that.
Like his grandmother, when he was 8 years old, doctors diagnosed Gaskins with a rare hereditary blood disease. He's here to thank donors.
They're the reason I'm still here and the reason I was able to chase my dream.
Advocates say 1 in 7 people hospitalized need blood, so the blood donated today may save a life tomorrow.
KPBS videographer Christopher Maui helped produce that story. More than 70,000 pints have been collected over the years. San Diego's housing crisis has caused some prices to soar and rents to soar as well. The problem has gotten so bad, it's uniting groups typically on the opposite sides of the political spectrum, environmentalists and developers. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says they're finding common ground around one idea: housing density.
The San Diego chapter of the Building Industry Association is housed in a sleek, modern office building in Kearny Mesa.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Andrew.
Nice to meet you too, Andrew.
Hi.
Bora.
Hi.
I'm here to meet the group's president and CEO, Bora Winkle. The BIA, as it's known, is the chief lobbying arm of developers. We sit down to talk in his corner office, and it doesn't take long for Winkle to name what he sees as the biggest barrier to building new housing in San Diego: NIMBYs.
NIMBY, as you well know, stands for Not in My Backyard. It seems like we have a new term also. It's called banana, build absolutely nothing anywhere near. Anywhere. That's a long one. And what happens is that we are facing folks who are very anti-density, and density has become kind of a 4-letter word for reasons that are completely insincere.
What do you mean insincere?
I think that people are talking a great deal about wanting more housing, but not near them.
The latest example of this conflict comes from Poway. Habitat for Humanity had a plan to build 22 affordable housing units for veterans on a vacant lot owned by the city. Several residents, some of whom said they were veterans, mobilized against the project at a recent city council meeting. They cited common arguments against density, traffic, and the less tangible neighborhood character.
So I'm just saying that I think when it's built, it's going to be an eyesore. You're not going to like what you see. And I think the density's too great, the lot's too small, and you're going to have something that you're not going to like.
All those in favor say aye.
The council narrowly voted 3-2 to reject the project.
Record will reflect that the motion was defeated.
When it comes to this kind of opposition, Winkle doesn't mince words.
It's disgusting. And this is the type of things that we fight. Because the NIMBYs are the greatest threat to densification. They don't want it. But they don't want it for any really articulated reason other than self-interest. And I'm not buying that.
High-density housing is more profitable for developers, so it's not hard to understand why they support it. But they're not alone. Winkle is part of a new organization in San Diego called Housing U Matters. It's made him the unlikely bedfellow of environmentalists and affordable housing advocates, reflecting a growing consensus that density is the answer to many problems. Nicole Capritz heads the nonprofit Climate Action Campaign.
Hey, how are you? You too.
Thanks for coming.
Her tiny office in University Heights is a stark contrast to the flashy BIA headquarters. Capritz is also part of Housing U Matters. She says the low-density sprawl of San Diego is behind the region's biggest contributor to climate change.
Transportation is the single largest driver of greenhouse gas emissions in our community, so our biggest carbon footprint comes from us driving to work. As a result, when people are living miles and miles away from where they're working, they're contributing again to the problem.
Capritz has been an advocate for building denser housing near public transit so people can get around without a car. She admits environmentalists and the building industry have often been on opposing sides. That's why this new alliance was far from inevitable.
I think it took an intentional effort on the part of all of us to kind of set aside past differences and maybe some remaining differences and instead focus on, okay, we're not going to agree on everything, but where can we come together? Where are we in alignment? We are going to ensure that housing sort of keeps rising to the top of the public policy agenda for every elected official in the region. And they can see that it's not just one particular interest group or stakeholder that's at the table, it's the broader community.
Capritz, Winkle, and the other members of Housing U Matters have a list of policy goals for elected officials, but they also want to change people's minds and convince them that projects like the one in Poway aren't the problem, they're the solution. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
The most expensive destroyer ever built for the Navy has broken down. It was on its way to its home port in San Diego. The USS Sumwalt was commissioned just a few weeks ago. The Navy says it lost power in the Panama Canal today. No word yet on how long it will take to fix the $4.4 billion ship. Donald Trump campaigned on a promise to build a physical wall between the U.S. and Mexico border. But people living along the border on the Rio Grande Valley in Texas say a virtual wall makes more sense. Associated Press reporter John Moan has the story.
If the U.S. built a wall along the winding Rio Grande...
See, this is actually Mexico on the other side. The only thing that divides our land from U.S. and Mexico is just a river, a beautiful river.
Aleda Garcia and her husband would lose access to most of their 30-acre Riverside Ranch in Los Ebanos, Texas.
This is actually my pride and joy as far as my land here. It has a lot of history, it has a lot of memories.
The string marks where the government first planned to build a barrier nearly 10 years ago to secure the borders under President George W. Bush.
I really, I feel that it's just a waste of time. And I'm going to fight it.
The government ended up constructing 652 miles of barriers, mostly in Arizona. The Garcias thought they'd been spared until this election.
We're going to build a wall, and Mexico is going to pay for the wall.
Donald Trump's biggest campaign pledge was that he wanted to build a great big wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Locals here in southern Texas say that idea is deceptively oversimplified.
It's the same way when people refer to this area as being in a war zone, when right now you're in McAllen, Texas, you're not in a war zone at all. Those type comments hurt trade.
Monica Weisberg-Stewart is part of the Texas Border Coalition, a group of local and county officials and business and community leaders along the southern border. The coalition is opposed to a wall and wants federal dollars to go instead to bolstering security at border crossings to stem the flow of illegal drugs. The Associated Press followed U.S. Customs and Border Protection during an active search operation along the Texas border.
Fuel gauge test.
As agents in the air, on the road, and on foot closed in and detained 8 people hiding in brush. In the last decade, the number of agents on the southwest border has nearly doubled to 17,500 in 2015. And the U.S. increasingly relies on an expanding virtual wall that includes surveillance from helicopters, planes, drones, stationary balloons, and towers stocked with cameras and sensors. The government spent $450 million last year in border security fencing, infrastructure, and technology. Federal data shows the increased surveillance has helped blunt the number of illegal border crossings. The number of apprehensions is down from a peak of 1.6 million in 2000 to just over 400,000 in the year ending in September.
And I would rather give my taxpayers' money to technology.
A message Garcia hopes gets through to President-elect Trump, who recently softened his position to indicate that some fencing could suffice instead of a 30 to 40-foot concrete wall. But the string a constant reminder of what could happen depending on the political will of the country. John Moan, Associated Press, Los Ebanos, Texas.
County health officials are once again planning to spray a neighborhood for the mosquito that carries the Zika virus. Tomorrow's spraying will be in Nestor in South Bay. A resident there got Zika while traveling outside the U.S. This will be the 10th San Diego neighborhood sprayed to keep Zika from spreading. The virus has been linked to birth defects. An ocean conservation group is returning to Mexico to keep the world's smallest porpoise from going extinct. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The Sea Shepherd Conservation Society is planning another expedition to protect the vaquita porpoise in the Gulf of California. The critically endangered porpoise is the world's smallest cetacean. The 3-foot-long animals are about the same size as the highly sought-after totoba fish, which live in the same area. Totoba fish gallbladders can sell for as much as $10,000 a pound. Captain Paul Watson says vaquitas are threatened by gill nets and longline fishing.
We've been given permission to locate and confiscate gill nets and long lines, which we've taken a considerable number out of that area. So it's really a project to stop the trend towards the eradication of the vaquita. There's less than 50 of them in existence.
Sea Shepherd crews are working with the Mexican Navy to stop the smuggling activity. They hope to be able to keep the vaquitas from going extinct. There are so few of the porpoises left alive that locals already thought the mammals had disappeared. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Did California do enough to save more than 100 million trees that died in the drought? A state oversight committee will take a look at that question over the next year. They'll look into how the state's forests are managed and look for possible solutions to the die-off.
We've heard from a couple of optimistic scientists, although we've also heard from folks saying in 20 years our Sierras won't look anything like what we have grown up with.
102 million trees have already been lost, and officials say millions more may still die. The clouds and rain are gone, but behind it, there's cooler weather for San Diego. Shanae Shocker has tonight's forecast.
Southern California once again being the odd man out. The Pacific storm ushering on shore across the northwest throughout the rest of today. Not really going to reach us down here in San Diego. So for tonight, we'll keep the partly cloudy conditions we've seen over the past 24 hours. 55 degrees for our lows. And as we take a look at the rest of the county, we're seeing very similar conditions as we head out towards the mountain areas into Ramona and also Alpine. Temperatures, they're dropping down into the 30s. Now, this also extends down into Mount Laguna and also down south in towards Campa the closer we go to the border. And the deserts once again staying slightly warmer in the mid 40s for your evening tonight. Now, as we head towards our Wednesday, we do have just a slight dip here off to our north, but we have that area of high pressure behind it. That's what's bringing us some milder conditions, as well as plenty of sunshine, which is quite nice. As we head towards later week, we'll hang on to that dry weather as well. So this is really what we're looking at as we head over the next few days on the coast. Temperatures climbing back up into the mid-70s for our Thursday, but we have plenty of sunshine. So on your Thanksgiving, take a look. 76 degrees for your high, sunny and pleasant weather. You can get out, maybe throw the football around with the kids and really just enjoy your time. Now, our overnight lows are slightly cooler. We're in the 30s for overnight, and then we'll be in the 40s as we head towards the end of your week and into your weekend. But as we head towards our Saturday and Sunday, we cool back down to sit into the 60s. Now, inland, this is where we see kind of a variety of temperatures across the board. On your Wednesday, we have partly sunny conditions, 73 degrees, very comfortable day. But on your Thanksgiving day, 84 degrees. We jump up quite warm for that day. Still comfortable though. We enjoy it. No clouds across the sky. Our overnight lows continuing to sit in the 30s. As we head towards the end of your work week, we'll stay in the 80s, then we'll drop back down on your Saturday into the low 70s and into the mid 60s by Sunday. For the mountain region, cooler temperatures, we're sticking pretty steady into the 50s. By Sunday, though, we are dropping quite a bit. Check this out, 43 degrees for your high on your Sunday, and your lows dropping down into the upper 20s, and it's also going to be quite breezy as well. Now, last but not least, we head out into the deserts, and we have beautiful weather here. Sunny and pleasant, really not too many clouds, maybe a couple of clouds for your Wednesday, but overall we'll be clearing up. Temperatures across the board sitting in the mid-70s, and as we head towards Sunday, we're not going to be as warm. Temperatures are around 67 degrees for your high, 45 for your low. So overall, we've got a great week ahead to get outdoors, enjoy the holidays as well. For KPBS News, I'm Shanae Shocker.
Traveling in California around Thanksgiving can be dangerous. Last year around this time, police made 1,000 arrests and 35 people died. AAA says more than 40 million people will be driving during this Thanksgiving weekend. So all available California Highway Patrol officers will be on duty starting Wednesday during what they call maximum enforcement period.
Each officer will be focusing their efforts on a myriad of subjects, really. Aiding disabled motorists, aiding motorists who are stranded or lost, focusing on aggressive driving behavior to include distracted driving, reckless driving, and impaired driving.
Police officers say use your seatbelt or designate a sober driver to stay safe this weekend. School is out right now at Mesa College, but students were encouraged to come back to campus today for a Thanksgiving feast. For the third year in a row, the community college provided a festive meal for those who may not have family nearby or a table to gather around.
And it's to outreach to our homeless students, our students who are out of state, and also our students that are food insecure. But it's really an event for everyone on campus. We just want to make sure that everyone at Mesa has a Thanksgiving feast, and we usually have bands come in, and it's just a big bonding event on campus.
The Associated Student Government paid for the meals. They expected about 150 students to stop by. A high-rise development on the edge of the San Diego State campus is nearing completion. Once it's done, it will provide housing for 600 students, a Trader Joe's, and some say a campus community that doesn't currently exist. KPBS editor Tom Fudge has the story.
The construction of South Campus Plaza, like so many construction projects, got behind schedule.
We had some trouble getting our final permit documents approved.
Bob Schultz, university architect for San Diego State, stands amid the remaining worksite.
We were originally going to be moving in August of 2016.
Now, the housing and residence halls will be ready for students in January. Final construction wraps up in April. The site has slowly transformed from a forest of steel framing and wallboard to two 6-story buildings on College Avenue. The students will live in the upper stories. On the ground floor will be restaurants and a Trader Joe's market. Schultz says the development is aimed at creating a campus community for today's students.
This is a very pedestrian-centric generation we've got enrolled here. So now for the first time in generations, you'll be able to come here, buy your groceries, sit down, have a beer with your friends watching a game.
And what about Trader Joe's, the anchor tenant? They'll be opening. They just won't say when. Tom Fudge, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, correspondent Malcolm Brabant sits down with a British mother whose son left home to fight for ISIS. That's Tuesday on the PBS NewsHour.
A traveling art exhibit is putting the focus on race and justice in America. It's called 30 Americans and features works by prominent African American artists. Producer Layla Cosme brings us the story.
The first evocative thing about this exhibition is its title. To have a collection that is African American artists but titled it 30 American Artists says something very important for our present.
Given the current political season where race has been foregrounded, an exhibition like 30 Americans can help us begin to have some of these really complicated conversations about race, identity, and experience.
It causes you to think about how you respond to others in our society.
It's very focused on social justice.
Art has always been a vehicle for social issues. The artist takes material, whether it's visual, whether it's auditory, whether it's something theatrical, and they use the subject of their world. So a number of these artists are talking about things that are happening in their lifetime. The piece here that's by Kehinde Wiley, it references antiquity, it references the fleeting moment of beauty in life.
Who Can Say No to a Gorgeous Brunette by Hank Willis Thomas. It's part of his series where Thomas takes advertisements and strips them of their text.
I think that Kara Walker's kind of a genius. She's not documenting the actual migration. It's an imagined history. It's not real, but we read a certain kind of realness onto it, and it's so fantastic.
This is a 1987 painting by Robert Colescott titled Pygmalion. And Pygmalion is the Greek myth where a sculptor falls in love with one of his creation and it comes to life. Colescott takes that myth and replaces all of the figures of beauty and desire as African American women. So the sculpture comes alive and is this beautiful woman.
There's a really wonderful hair grid that's here. Lorna Simpson, she has for a long time talked about those kind of qualities of the female anatomy. What is beauty? How is beauty transformed? And hair is a big deal. Additions of it or subtractions of it equaled how beautiful we were thought of.
This work is by Gary Simmons called Duck, Duck, Goose. And it's a play on the child's game, Duck, Duck, Goose. And as you can see, they're small clan's hood and a noose. And he's using this game to remind us that racism is learned from childhood.
I also see things here in this gallery that bridge the full range of the human experience. And I'm really happy to see the Noah Davis, the painting he did for his father. His father died very young, and Noah died very young. And at the point that Noah painted this painting for my dad, he didn't know he was ill. To be able to come and stand in front of a Kehinde Wiley or Kara Walker or Lorna Simpson or Noah Davis, I feel very grateful.
In 20 years, when somebody writes the next history of American art, some of these artworks are going to be the illustrations.
Now let's recap some of tonight's top stories. 2 weeks after Election Day, votes are still being counted in many California races. One reason the count is taking so long, voter law here is more inclusive than in many other states, meaning there are more provisional ballots, which take longer to count. The San Diego Chargers held their annual blood drive in Mission Valley today. This time of year, when the demand for blood goes up, the Chargers have been holding this drive for 38 years. And in that time, they've collected more than 70,000 pints of blood. And the most expensive destroyer ever built for the Navy may be late arriving to its San Diego home port. The USS Zumwalt ran into a problem while trying to pass through the Panama Canal. The propulsion system broke down. The Zumwalt was commissioned just a few weeks ago. Its price tag, $4.4 billion. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, some of San Diego's homeless are finding hope and healing through music. Tune in to hear the voices of our city choir. On Midday Edition, before you burn your biscuits or turkey, get some Thanksgiving advice, cooking advice rather. We sat down with Chef Bernard of the Marine Room in La Jolla. That's tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening.